The rand, stocks and government bonds slumped today following US President Donald Trump's comment on how he would cut off funding for South Africa. This morning, the rand traded at 18 rand 89 cents against the dollar, about 1 cent weaker than its closing level on Friday. On Sunday, Trump said that certain classes of people in South Africa were being treated very badly and he would suspend aid until the matter was investigated. We're now joined by President of the South African Chamber of Commerce in the United States, Neil Diamond. Good evening, Neil. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, when we last spoke, the big concern was around AGOA and its possible renewal or non-renewal. There's a new threat now, cutting off foreign aid due to what Trump says is the confiscation of land and ill treatment of certain classes of people. Your reaction as a body?
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. The South African Chamber of Commerce in the US expressed our deep concern over the comments made by President Trump over the weekend. The impact on South African business will definitely be adversely affected. This raised serious concerns for the South African business community, particularly considering our binational trade agreements under AGOA. The US is South Africa's second largest trading partner, and tariff-free trading under AGOA amounted to $6.5 billion, benefiting mainly South African manufacturers and exporters. Trade with the US supports key industries such as the automotive sector, component manufacturing, and agriculture and mining. The loss of AGOA benefits would impact South African business and lead to potential job losses and economic hardship.
So you think this posture would undoubtedly trickle down to AGOA?
I've got no doubt of that. It already started with the US suspending all aid payments for 90 days. We know that the US have pledged $440 million under PEPFAR and USAID for initiatives in various South African programs, and that amounts to about 8 billion South African rand. Just to give you an indication, about 17% of all AIDS programs in South Africa is funded by money from the United States. And this would have an impact on those communities.
Now, the reality, though, Neil, or the fact, is that South Africa is not arbitrarily expropriating land. Worse, a significant amount of land is owned by a few in this country. That is the South African context. We all know it. So what role, perhaps, are you looking to play to correct the falsehoods, given your proximity to the source of the threats?
Thank you for that question. We play a role of being a lobbyist for business. At the same time, it is our responsibility to ensure that the facts set under which decisions are being taken are accurate and correct. What I do believe is that we need additional dialogue and communication. As the Chamber, we are engaging our contacts on the Hill in Washington, D.C. to ensure that the correct information reaches the President's ears. It is very unfortunate that presidents and political leaders make decisions based on media reports and opinions rather than facts. And in that regard, we've got full reliance on our Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, as well as our ambassador in Washington, D.C., the Honorable Ibrahim Rasool, to also engage on their level with political and diplomatic channels to bring the correct information to President Trump's ears.
But I suppose even your contribution as a body there, independent of government, would also bring some legitimacy to this, because someone could say that, oh yes, government would come and try to address the matter, but I think there would be a role played by bodies such as yours, outside of government, to say, here we are independent and we're going to speak truthfully about the policies of South Africa. Because, I mean, this is certainly an injustice. It's one thing, when it came to AGOA, you and I were discussing that here, it was predominantly premised on the fact that we have a foreign policy that could possibly be seen to be in conflict with the policy of the United States, whether it be around Israel and Palestine, etc. So in that instance, there was just that misalignment, and possibly, even though we are a sovereign state, but there could have been that decision taken purely based on our foreign policy, which we were not willing to surrender. But in this instance, it's premised on falsehoods.
Well, I think that is our collective concern. And as business, we've got a strong voice. Business has a strong voice in the United States. And we are going to use everything to our disposal to bring the correct information to the White House. and to the powers that be. SACCUSA remains committed to advocating for the interest of South African business in the United States and fostering strong, mutually beneficial binational trade that could benefit both our countries. That is our responsibility and our mandate from our members. But we also encourage our government and our president to take up those discussions. We have got a collective responsibility to ensure that the President of the United States has the correct and accurate information on which he bases his decision. We are currently on President Trump's radar, and we don't want South Africa to be there. We have had a long history of a good relationship between our two countries, and we'd like to see a continuation of that stability in the relationship. We don't want to be in the space where we are at the moment.
Maybe this question will be beyond your purview, but nevertheless, we'd like to just get your views. What should be the consequences for those who have actively and consistently perpetuated some of these inaccuracies about the country's policies to serve their narrow interests? Because whether we like it or not, the US president didn't sit in a corner and concoct these views. Some individuals, entities or groupings brought this kind of false information to his attention. And it has consequences even for the business community in the United States. So what should be the consequences in this respect?
I think it's very difficult to hold those individuals to account, but the message that we would like to share with them as business is the impact of their actions has destroyed billions of rands on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange today. We're going to see what the further impact is as the week unfolds. The long-term implications of these are the losses of jobs, affecting people's lives and economically hurting South Africa. That is not what we want to see. We need South Africa as a strong geopolitical power with good relationships internationally. So the message to those individuals is cease and desist, because you are hurting South Africa.
Cease and desist. You are hurting South Africa. Neil, thank you very much for those words. That's President of the South African Chamber of Commerce in the United States, Neil Diamond, there speaking to us.